So components of a permeable paver. First thing, what is a permeable paver and who is Uniloc? Uniloc is actually the company that brought the concrete paver to North America. So we started in the early 70s making concrete pavers, and we've been installing permeable pavers since the 1990s. To us here in Pittsburgh, it might be new information, but as a technique, as a resource, this has been around for a number of years, and we're just starting to get into it here in Pittsburgh. I think the other thing to think about with Uniloc is the opportunity to use different styles. Sometimes when we think about a permeable paver, we might think about one size, one shape, one color. This is not that presentation, but there are certainly options within Uniloc's portfolio that we can talk about to kind of give variety, texture, and identity. How many of you today, when you heard permeable pavers, thought of this product? Most of you, probably, if you're honest with yourself, you thought of this product. It's been around since the 40s. This was one of the very first techniques in installing and handling different opportunities, allowing gravel to be infilled, allowing grass to be infilled. I do not consider this a permeable paver. This is a porous technique. It is an opportunity for overflow parking. It's an opportunity for emergency vehicles, maybe to potentially get around to your site. It is not something that I would put in your parking lot that needs to be snowplowed. And certainly in our conditions, that grass is not going to thrive unless it is properly maintained with irrigation. And then we're kind of counterintuitively designing a system to irrigate something that we're trying to maintain the stormwater. So for me, this is not a permeable paver. And I want to kind of address how this product has evolved over the years. But what we need to start with is identifying what the system is. And Bruce kind of started to touch on this at the end. Again, he was focusing on maintenance, but I kind of had to go from the very beginning. So with permeable pavers, the biggest concept that we have to identify is that concrete paver is a solid unit. Okay? If anyone was able to go downstairs on their break, I have one sample here. Before you go down, or when you go down for lunch to pick up your lunch, it's in the window. Okay? I have one there. I'd love to talk to you about it. The concept behind a permeable paver is the enlarged joint. It's created through a spacer, and we fill that with aggregate. That's where our infiltration is occurring. It's not actually going through the medium like it is in porous concrete, porous asphalt. Obviously, with a paver, it's an individual unit. It's not a monolithic pour. The same concept, though, happens in a rain garden and in our porous concrete, porous asphalt. We are now storing that water underneath the system and allowing it to infiltrate. Eric did a wonderful job of explaining the difficulty in certain areas with our soil conditions. The concept here is even with the worst soil conditions, we're going to get infiltration. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. So these are some of the questions that I got, and I'm trying to address them. The biggest thing, I think, when we start talking about these different systems is we use the same words for the different materials. Permeable pavers, as you can kind of hear from my explanation, is water going around the edge of the paver and infiltrating through the joint. It's not going through the material itself. With porous pavers, that would be more like the first image I showed you. It's a cellular grid that allows the water to move through it. And then with pervious, that kind of applies more to pervious concrete, pervious asphalt. It's allowing air, water, elements to move through the actual medium itself. So these are three different terms describing three different installations. They're not synonymous, though. This is a cross-section, kind of isometrically, showing the different layers of the system. And fortunately, we've learned a little bit more about what an underdrain is. It's a release valve. It's a safety valve. It ensures that the system works despite the soils, right? So, starting from the bottom, I actually do recommend a geotextile fabric in this occasion, okay? Unlike in a rain garden where you're trying to separate medium and has the opportunity to get plugged, what we're trying to do here is keep those aggregates from migrating into the soil and vice versa. So it kind of acts as a protective layer to ensure that your medium stays clean, okay? And that there's proper infiltration. This is the one area where we will use geotextile fabric. We do not want it in between these aggregate layers. The concept originally, I think there was a call for that, but what we want is interlock. Those aggregates are very angular by nature. They have no fines, no sediment, no sand. They're cleaned and washed, and we want them to interlock. That is what creates that structural stability in your cross-section of pavers, okay? So we start off with a larger aggregate at the bottom. We have and I'll go through these a little bit more, a medium layer and then a setting bed. Similar to what Bruce was saying, one of the things that we need to control is run on to these surfaces. So in this instance, we have a concrete curb, a proper curb like we would for normal stormwater, but it's mostly to keep the edge condition from running onto the surface. We don't want soils running on, we don't want mulch running on. That's going to create additional maintenance long term. One of the things that's not shown here is oftentimes we use permeable pavers, kind of like what Bruce was showing, for the parking stalls themselves, not necessarily the aisle. That's a design solution that some people come up with. And if we use asphalt, for example, as our parking lane, or excuse me, our drive lane, we want a concrete curb to separate those two materials. It's going to provide longevity to both systems. Concrete pavers, as many of you might know, rely on a complex interlocking system to stay in place. The joint material helps lock it in place, as does the laying pattern. If that is able to move, it's able to unlock itself, basically. So that concrete curb helps keep the pavers stable, and then asphalt has a real problem of deteriorating at the edge. Crushing, cracking, whatever it is, that concrete curb will keep those two surfaces strong and unified. Again, this is that cross section. So one of the other things that I brought today is a little display box of these aggregate layers. Okay, because sometimes to us that aren't in the design field, these numbers that I'm going to say don't really mean much. But we start off with a number 2 stone. It's just smaller than our fist size. The nice thing about that, very angular, interlock. It also creates a lot of pore space where that water is going to reside, creating that detention space. The middle layer is our standard 57 stone. But again, it's without the fines, it's without the sands, etc. It's all clean material, and that creates that void space. The constant here, those two are going to be variable based on design considerations, and I'll get into that. The constant is always going to be the setting bed. This is our smallest aggregate size. It's down to about 1/4 inch in size, and that creates tabletop-like surface in which we set our pavers. Typically, when we think of pavers, we're setting it on sand, and that's how we get our level surface. We're able to achieve the same results with a smaller aggregate size, but it needs to be locked in place, and that's where that concrete curb comes in again. Some people think pavers inherently are permeable. That is not the case. In a standard system with sand, yes, it's true, some water will seep in between those joints. That's okay. That's what we want it to do. We know that that's going to happen. That sand acts as a layer to move that medium through, and then very similar to what Eric was talking about, how water actually seeps its way all the way down through the bedrock and the ground table. It's going to find its way through that very compacted aggregate as well. Okay? But the ultimate goal in a sand setting system is sheet flow. Okay? So that's how they're different. In a permeable system, we want that water to move directly, vertically down through the system.